Well, we're back again out in a sunny day here in the Texas Hill Country on the front porch of the Sebring Clinic with the cicadas in the background chirping or buzzing or whatever it is they do. We've been talking about nutrition, and besides diet, what else is there that you can do?
Well, diet, of course, is foundational, but I think one of the most important things to do is get the intestinal tract working well so that you can get the benefits from that diet, okay? If your gut's not working well, and gut is a formal medical term, actually, people don't realize that, but it is. But if you don't get the gut working well, then you don't get the nutrition out of the food that you supply. And so you've really got to get that working well. And probably the most important thing a person can do is get the good bacteria in the gut working for you. A lot of us don't have even any of the proper bacteria for the intestinal tract. Acidophilus is probably the most important one of all the key healthy bacteria in the intestinal tract. Lactobacilli acidophilus. Now normally we get that from mom at delivery, going through the vaginal canal. We get inoculated with that. It lines our intestinal tract, grows and multiplies, and there it protects us. It actually will line the intestinal tract like Velcro, preventing toxins from going in. It kills viruses, it kills yeast, it kills bad bacteria in the intestinal tract that can do harm and produce a lot of toxic byproducts from their metabolism. So the Lactobacilli acidophilus is really important. Bulgaricus is another one, and so that really is, and bifidobacterium, there's a lot of these. And you can get these at health food stores and that sort of thing. There's some of the better stores will sell some of the higher quality, those are called probiotics. If you ask for probiotics, the person at the health food store or the doctor should know that they're talking about good bacteria for the intestinal tract. And you can just take that as a pill. There's almost no taste to it. Sometimes come in a powder. They'll put a little orange or mango puree in there with it, and keep that in a powder form. You keep it refrigerated, and a half teaspoon of that every day, or a capsule if that bothers you, and then that can begin to grow and to multiply.
And so all this is really about your stomach, your gut operating properly so that you end up with the nutrition that you're trying to get. I mean, that's at least one part of it, isn't it?
Exactly. A big part of disease, 70% of our immune system is the lining of our intestinal tract. And there's a lot of evidence to support that autoimmune diseases begin there. Just for an example, rheumatoid arthritis. There's a lot of evidence for a scenario of the causation of rheumatoid arthritis from a bacteria in the gut called Bacteroides. Very common, not a pathogen, not a bad bacteria in the gut, sort of neutral. But this bacteria has a protein in its cell wall. If that protein comes through the lining of the intestinal tract and the immune system sees it, it'll see that as an invader and attack it, okay? Making antibodies to it. Well, some of us, depending on our genes, have a cell in our body in the lining of our articular cartilage that looks just like that protein coming in. The body makes antibodies to this protein coming in and then attacks our joints and articular cartilage and our joints for the rest of our lives. If you've got rheumatoid arthritis. Now, the family genetics have to be correct because you have to have that protein in your articular cartilage before there's a problem. So you ask the question, well, is rheumatoid arthritis, is it genetic or is it environmental? And the answer is it's really both. But if you can prevent the environmental problem by keeping the lining healthy with keeping the lining of the intestine healthy with good bacteria, then a whole protein is not allowed to get through. Only when it's chronically inflamed and the cells that line the intestinal tract are what we call have tight junctions, that are little spot welds that keep them together, and that prevents the larger molecules from coming through. Good digestion helps as well in terms of digestive enzymes. If you digest it well, you don't have these big long molecules being presented to the immune system because they're already cut up by the enzymes long before they get to that portion of the intestinal tract. So digestive enzymes are helpful. The probiotics, the good bacteria, helps the body to produce more of the digestive enzymes as well. So it all sort of cycles around and each one helps the other.
So good bacteria and bad bacteria, and there's ways we end up with a bad bacteria in us, in our guts. And how does that happen, and then how do we correct that?
Well, how it happens is antibiotics. That's probably the most common cause for the bad bacteria in the gut. Plus, a lot of the foods we eat sort of promote an unhealthy environment for the bad bacteria to thrive. If we ate more of the paleo-style diet, the fruits, nuts, vegetables, the lean meat, chicken, fish, turkey, etc., those foods promote the good bacteria. The grains, beans, potatoes, and dairy can promote another bacteria. Now, dairy can come with acidophilus, but that's an acidophilus from a cow or a goat, depending on where the dairy comes from, and not from a human being. There are a few companies that sell a pill of bacteria that comes from a human being, and it turns out we have receptors for it. So we actually have electron micrographs of that good acidophilus lining the intestinal tract up to 200 cells deep. That's a wonderful buffer from preventing that to come in. Now, we're supposed to, like I said, we're supposed to be inoculated at birth, but mom may have had antibiotics before. We have antibiotics in our food. If you give a hunter-gatherer a round of antibiotics, it's typically 2 years before his intestinal tract bacteria is back to normal again. So it's not easy to maintain that. And so when you take the probiotic, you kind of need to do that on a daily basis. To maintain that. Once you get good and inoculated, then you can probably just re-inoculate 2 or 3 times a week, as long as you're eating the diet that promotes the good bacteria.
We've been talking about giving real-life examples and you know, success stories and how you've utilized some of these things we're talking about, you know, in your practice. And do you have an example of that for good gut health?
Sure. It's you know, people with irritable bowel syndrome, chronic constipation, that sort of thing, or even diarrhea. Chronic diarrhea is a real problem with a lot of people, you know, and so we as humans, we're designed to go have a bowel movement 20 minutes after a meal, you know, just like the dog, making room for more food coming in. But we've learned socially, you don't have time for that. We learned to, you know, kind of stave that off. And so what happens is it's you know, people come in here and you treat them with this. It'll cure the diarrhea. Ulcerative colitis is not hard to take care of, in spite of all the pain that people go through and the seemingly chronic nature of that. Change the diet, like we talked about, and get the good bacteria for the gut working. And these people, they don't have any more problems anymore. Crohn's disease, another version of ulcerative colitis, the same idea. And so, and the irritable bowel is incredibly common. Now, there's a multiple of reasons why a person gets irritable bowel, including parasites, etc. And most of the labs today only find parasites about 20% of the time, so they're missed. There's some specialty labs that are very good at it, and they have a lot higher detection rate. But yeah, the irritable bowel, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, stomach cramping, all of those things. But the subtleties of this is that the nutrition is better absorbed from the food, and people just feel better in general. And that's probably the biggest reason that I recommend that. The 3 pillars of health at my clinic are the paleo diet, good bacteria for the intestinal tract, and omega-3 fish oil. And we'll talk about that.
You've been watching Beyond Medicine, Natural Health Empowerment. If you would like more information, contact the Sebring Clinic at 512-847-5618 or visit us on the web at sebringclinic.com.